Through your worship, we're live.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Clerk. We'll call this meeting to order. Good evening, everybody, council, special guests, members of the public. Before we start, I'll just bring regrets for Councillor White, who is out of town on business this week and won't be attending. And I'll turn it over now to Councillor DeLeo for our land acknowledgement. Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everyone. The town of Wasaga Beach acknowledges it is located upon the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people of the Three Fires Confederacy. We also acknowledge that the people of Wyandot Nation also inhabited these lands. We acknowledge that these nations were sovereign nations existing before the arrival of settlers. We respect the spiritual interconnection among these nations to the land and to the water. We also acknowledge that waterways near us have a long history predating European arrival. Since time immemorial, waterways were the lifeblood of the indigenous people by trade and hunting routes. We are dedicated to inclusivity of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people in our future stewardship of the land and the longest freshwater beach in the world. In the spirit of reconciliation, we welcome the opportunity of learning to be sustainable caretakers of the land and waterways for all future generations. Thank you.
Megwish, thank you, Councillor. And now going on to item number 2, disclosure of pecuniary interests. I have none before me at this time. If at some point throughout this meeting you feel you have a pecuniary interest, please disclose it at that time. Item number 3 is approval of the agenda, and we do have a motion that the contents of the agenda of October 23rd, 2024 be approved as circulated. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor DeLeo, seconded by Councillor Eagle. All in favor? That motion carries unanimously. Moving on to statutory public meetings, item number 4. We have a public meeting under the Planning Act, the new draft official plan. This is a public meeting regarding the new draft official plan for the town of Wasaga Beach affecting all lands within town boundaries. This public meeting is an opportunity for members of the public to learn more about the draft plan. For Council, this public meeting is not to engage in debate regarding the merits of the draft official plan, nor is it intended to be a question and answer session for Council. It is simply to make Council aware of the public's comments and to ask any clarifying questions regarding those comments. No decisions are being made at this public meeting. Please be advised that you must make a request in writing if you wish to receive a notice of any decision of Council regarding the draft official plan. To make a written request for notice at this meeting, please fill out the planning public meeting sign-in sheet located beside the Deputy Clerk, which is Barb over here to our right, at that table, and a member of staff will be there to assist you. Presentations by the planning staff tonight is Matt Ellis. Planning staff will now make a brief presentation and will provide further details with respect to the new draft official plan for the town of Wasaga Beach. Council also recognizes that Patrick Casey, planner, and Steve Weaver, president of GSP Group, are in attendance tonight here at the front with us. Welcome, gentlemen. The GSP Group are the town's lead planning consultants on this project. And so, Matt, looking dapper tonight. We'll turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Mayor Smith and members of council. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for taking the time out of your evening for our public meeting on our new Town of Wasaga Beach official plan. I'll start with just a quick overview of our presentation. It'll begin with why we're all gathered here tonight. We'll explain what the official plan is and its purpose, why we need a new official plan, the provincial and regional planning framework that the official plan fits within, how we engaged with the public and other community stakeholders, and how we continue to engage, what we've heard and continue to hear from those engagement opportunities, the key drivers of change, which we'll get into later, but those are what we see as societal forces that inform the policies of the official plan. The first draft of the new official plan, which was released in May, and the second draft, which was released within the last couple of weeks. Then I'll summarize the presentations and briefly describe next steps once the official plan is adopted. So why we're here. The This public meeting, as well as the open house that was held on October 10th, is required under the Planning Act prior to the adoption of an official plan or the zoning bylaw, which will come after the official plan. The Planning Act requires the public meeting to be held a certain number of days after the open house. The open house was held on October 10th. There's a slight typo in that slide. The notice was sent out on the 3rd. The open house was held on the 10th. The purpose of this public meeting is to provide an opportunity to the public for sharing written comments and making oral submissions to council. The official plan is mandated by the Ontario Planning Act. It outlines the community's long-term vision, usually around 30 years for growth and improvement over that time horizon. An official plan identifies where and when different types of growth will occur and prescribes policies and criteria that are to be considered in the review of development applications. An official plan provides general direction related to growth management and employment, tourism, and economic development, infrastructure, environment and resources, and public health and safety. Bylaws passed and public works undertaken by the town are required to conform to the official plan. Our current official plan was adopted by Town Council in September of 2003 and was approved by the County of Simcoe in June 2004. The current official plan, it did a good job. It laid the groundwork and structure for a more year-round urban community, including new commercial areas, residential neighborhoods, and policies for revitalized downtown. But however, the official plan is tired and its time to retire has come. So why we need a new official plan? The town has seen a significant amount of population growth, grown by just over 65% since the official plan was adopted. We are rapidly evolving from a primarily tourism-based community to a more balanced and complete urban community. We've also seen an increased need for housing options, a need for higher quality urban design. Climate change has obviously affected us all, and no community is immune to climate change. We've seen shifts in the local economic landscape. There's an evolution of communications technology and planning best practices. And also we've seen extensive changes in provincial and regional planning legislation and policy that impacts how development applications are reviewed and the content that goes into the official plan. Oh, okay, sorry about that. I just, I skipped, I forgot to change that slide. Okay, so, yeah, so as I've said, we've seen rapid population growth. We've consistently been one of the fastest growing communities in Canada. And we anticipate reaching a population of approximately 50,000 residents by 2051. This official plan is a thoughtful plan that will direct growth to areas of town where we wish to see transformation and where we have the infrastructure to support it, while at the same time this official plan is intentional about the areas of town where we do not wish to see that growth. As Wasaga Beach continues to grow, the town will evolve into a more complete community that offers a high quality of life and with a mix of land uses, amenities, and opportunities for residents, businesses, and visitors. Housing mix in the town is moving from primarily single attached housing to include more townhomes and apartments. And we've also seen a general aging population with smaller household sizes. Council, you folks at the front, have also developed a term of council priorities that includes pursuing complete streets, improving community parks and recreation, growing tourism, improving the public realm, and pursuing green initiatives. Achieving these priorities simply requires a new official plan. The provincial and regional planning framework, the Planning Act, is at the top. It outlines the matters of provincial interest that must be addressed when considering development applications. This is quite an extensive list. It includes matters of environmental protection, agricultural protection, resource protection, conservation, public health and safety, and whatnot. The Act also authorizes the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing to make certain policy statements that affect matters of provincial interest. So that's the second document in the photos on the right. The Simcoe County Official Plan. The County of Simcoe is the approval authority for the town's official plan. The existing Simcoe County Official Plan was adopted in 2008 and was partially approved by the former Ontario Municipal Board in 2013. Since that time, it has been approved in phases, with the final phase coming into full force and effect in December of 2016. The Simcoe County Official Plan delineates settlement areas that lower tier municipalities are required to adopt. For the town of Wasaga Beach, our settlement area coincides with our town boundaries. The Simcoe County Official Plan requires lower tier municipalities in their official plans to establish planning strategies and policies that are consistent with the provincial planning statement and in conformity with the Simcoe County Official Plan. Recently adopted Simcoe County Official Plan Amendment number 7, aka SCOPA 7. That is awaiting approval from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. Sees the town, it assigns the town a population of 38,090 persons by 2051. But given historical growth trends and planning applications in the pipeline, the town estimates that within this planning horizon, we'll see a population of approximately 50,000 by 2051. And then the Town of Wasaga Beach Official Plan, which, as I mentioned, it outlines the town's long-term vision, outlines where growth is to occur, where land uses are to generally be located, how development applications are reviewed, and land use designations like neighborhood, business and commerce and whatnot. They're established in like broad areas of the town. The zoning bylaw is the main policy instrument that will implement the official plan, and that will get more granular on zoning properties on a property by property basis, and we'll get into specific provisions like height and yard setbacks, et cetera, for those properties, for each of those zones. The process that we've undertaken to develop this new official plan, it has been a long work in progress. It started in 2017 with background research papers focused on community growth, commercial retail and tourism, and GSP. Of course, our folks beside us here were retained as our lead consultants, and MBLC and Curtis Planning were sub-consultants. This team, we recognize as expert consultants that collectively have a broad range of experience in land use planning, economic development, and public consultation. Engagement opportunity or engagement events that were held during the first stages of the official plan include First Nations consultation, consultation with the County of Simcoe and applicable provincial agencies, consultation with stakeholder focus groups, of course, meetings with town departments, a public meeting, much like the one being held now, a drop-in public information session and visioning workshop, a consultation at the youth center, and a pop-up booth consultation at an event called the Inflata Fest, which was, looks like that was held at the Playland parking lot at the main end. The new official plan, what we heard from those engagement opportunities includes pursuing more housing options. Our community is seeking an increased need and range of housing options that first-time home buyers, workers, families, and other adults aspire to, and this includes a desire for more rental options and additional dwelling units. We need more compact mixed-use communities within walkable and complete neighborhoods. Environmental protection, of course, is always important, as the community is seeking to protect the beach, rivers, and woodlands and other natural treat areas for future generations and visitors. Enhanced public space opportunities, as our community is seeking new indoor and outdoor venues for events, classes, trails, and other community activities that are equally distributed amongst neighborhoods. Pursue compact development, which goes hand in hand with pursuing more transportation options, so as to minimize the need to travel long distances. Pursuing more employment uses. Our land use designations should be flexible in our nodes, which I'll get into later, that encourage and support economic diversification and job creation, and pursuing year-round tourism attractions, as this will help support longer-term stays at higher quality hotels. So out of those comments, and as well as certain things that we've seen over the years, we've grouped these comments and those forces that we call key drivers of change. So these key drivers of change are our global climate emergency, rapid growth, reversing out community trends, housing affordability, focus on place quality, downtown revitalization, infrastructure, financial sustainability, and celebrating our diversity. Key structures of our new official plan include elements that are provided to give direction to where different types of uses are and are not to be permitted, their intensity, relationships with existing and proposed development and redevelopment, and how growth will generally proceed to achieve community goals. In response to the key drivers of change, the land use designations have been formulated to work to achieve complete neighborhoods in a vibrant downtown, provide flexibility in terms of achieving a better mix and densities, appropriate infill and intensification and housing which meets people's range and needs across their lifetimes, while addressing the issues of compatibility within existing areas, minimize the inefficiencies in unsustainability and climate change challenges of suburban sprawl, as well as antiquated building and infrastructure practices. protection and enhancement of the natural environment, making efficient use of servicing and road infrastructure, and supporting higher quality employment uses. So these nodes and corridors that I touched on briefly are key intersections and road corridors throughout the town where commercial activity and higher density residential land uses have clustered or are anticipated to cluster. The majority of intensification will be directed to these strategic growth areas, or SGAs. So conceptually, they're illustrated by this graphic at the bottom of the screen. In our town, the strategic growth areas that we have proposed, going from east to west, are the Sunrise District, the downtown, Old Mosley Village, Schoonertown, Springhurst Junction, and an emerging SGA that we haven't quite determined the boundaries for, but we are doing that through the West Wasaga Secondary Plan, which is another process separate from this official plan. So the boundaries for that SGA, the Sunset District, will be determined through that process. Housing affordability. Our housing form has significantly been dominated by single detached residential dwellings. But what we need more of is we need more dwellings like the townhomes and apartment buildings like the ones that are in the middle and on the right-hand side of your screen. The official plan has policies to promote and to support the provision of a complete housing mix that responds to the different characteristics and needs of people throughout their lifetimes, including such factors as health and accessibility needs, housing, household income levels, and family and household size and composition. Our current development and historic development has been dominated by sprawling residential subdivisions such as the ones that are on the left-hand side of your screen. And this is pretty much the same for pretty much every community. But these lower density neighborhoods are expensive to service with water and sewer and roads, as well as emergency services, parks and community centers, et cetera. What we need is we need more higher density, compact, mixed-use neighborhoods. The new official plan is very deliberate in seeking to direct growth in a manner that is more compact and at higher densities, so that municipal revenues and operating costs are in a better balance. I stress that this does not mean that we'll have tall buildings everywhere. Instead, what it means is growth will be directed to areas that can best support it to maximize efficient use of infrastructure while pursuing a more diverse range and mix of housing types and tenures, as well as preserving community character within existing neighborhoods. In addition to reducing financial costs, smarter land use approaches that are contained within the new official plan will help reduce energy consumption, decrease greenhouse gas emissions, and promote healthier lifestyles. From an infrastructure perspective, the town of Wasaga Beach is very well positioned with water, hard infrastructure. That's stuff like water pipes and sewer pipes and water towers and all that stuff that you typically don't see, except for obviously the water towers. But we're really well positioned, thank you, on that front. But unfortunately, What we don't have enough of is what we call soft infrastructure. So those are things like schools, parks, all the amenities that is needed to comprise a complete community. The new official plan is very deliberate in striving to fill in those gaps. And I noticed while we already made some progress on that front with the announcement of a future high school and elementary school adjacent to our new arena and library, and we're at the top of the list for another high school in the Sunnydale Trails area. But this isn't a finish line. Once those schools are open, we don't just wash our hands and say, okay, we're done. Pursuing soft infrastructure is an ongoing need, and this official plan recognizes that and strives to meet that ongoing need. From the global climate emergency, as I mentioned, none of us are immune to climate change, and some of the climate change events that we have seen in our town include the beachfront area, or AKA the main end, being flooded out a few years ago, and some of those businesses were literally had water, they were underwater, and that resulted in a lot of money being spent with our town trucks having to go and clean the sand off the road that was deposited from that flooding. And also our residents in the west end of town, they regularly see their yards and their homes flooded during the early spring months. So we recognize that, and so the official plan addresses these challenges by including policies that speak to sustainable building and infrastructure design, climate change resilience and adaptation, and general guidance aimed at reducing the impacts of urban sprawl, increasing active transportation opportunities, and increasing and enhancing the benefits provided by the natural environment, such as cooling provided by street trees, innovative stormwater management practices, et cetera. Our town is quite blessed, is quite fortunate to have amazing natural resources, including our world's longest freshwater beach and our parabolic sand dunes, as well as the Nottawasaga River. However, what we lack in the built environment are beautiful, walkable, and vibrant mixed-use centers. Providing interesting urban places is particularly relevant when we look at ways to attract investment and retain residents, especially younger residents. And we recognize that if we don't provide these types of environments or the ability to live in these types of environments, then those who seek them will pursue them elsewhere. So this new official plan is very intentional in enabling the creation of that higher place quality. For our downtown, in the 1950s, it was quite a happening place, as I'm told. Unfortunately, our historical development patterns have resulted in the downtown resembling kind of a barren landscape for much of the year. Although it's still a great place to go, obviously on the weekends it could be a lot better. So our official plan strives to achieve revitalization of the downtown, and by continuing forward the downtown development master plan and building on those policies. Economically, almost 70% of our residents have to travel out of our community to their jobs 5 days a week. Most of our jobs are concentrated in three sectors: retail, trade, construction, and accommodation and food services. The new official plan is deliberate in providing more opportunity for higher wage, value-added employment in educational services, professional, scientific, and technical services, and manufacturing. We've touched on the fact that our population continues to grow at a significant rate, but at the same time, our natural increase, such as births minus deaths, has gotten smaller, so our households have gotten smaller. Obviously, this leads to more immigration. So our official plan supports that more diverse population that we're seeing as our population, as we welcome folks from different cultures and countries, as well as folks that are able or that are older and perhaps have accessibility challenges. Our new official plan also is a lot, even though it's a 400-page document, it is a lot more streamlined than the current official plan. Amendments to the current official plan have resulted in a policy document that is unnecessarily complex and uncoordinated. As a result of its age, the current OP does not reflect prevailing best planning practices, such as policies that promote complete communities, complete streets, and response to climate change, as well as other community priorities and recent legislative changes. So a new official plan is required to keep up with all those changes. And as well as doing that, we've also streamlined the official plan by taking out some land use designations that are no longer needed, and consolidating others to reduce the number from 26 on our current official plan to 12 in our draft official plan. The council, the process of updating our official plan, while we were working on, of course, Steve and Patrick were working hard on revising our policies, we updated you, council, in April of 2024 by giving a presentation much like this one on the key elements of the official plan prior to release of the first draft. The first draft was released in May and made available on the Engage Wasaga website, as well as our planning offices that are now at 120 Glenwood Drive in the old library. Approximately 890 people were circulated the first draft, and 148 members are subscribed to the official plan review page on the Engage Wasaga website as of October 3rd. So I think there's slightly more than that now. After the first draft was released, we held an event at the My Wasaga Days at the Recplex on May 23rd in the evening from 7 to 9, as well as May 25th from 9 till noon. Approximately 250 persons attended those events. And over the summer, we met with our town departments, staff from the county, MVCA, and of course, gathered input from comments that were received from the public, planning consultants, agencies, et cetera. And we took all those comments and then came out with a second draft that was released in the last couple of weeks and is also available on the Engage Wasaga website. The open house was held on October 10th. Approximately 75 persons attended. Input on the second draft is now being sought through this meeting, as well as comments that we continue to receive in preparation for the final draft to be considered by Town Council. So I just summarize. We released the first draft in May of 2024. Following the release of the first draft, we re-engaged with community stakeholders. Input from community stakeholders is considered to be, is being considered for the second draft. We are now reviewing that through this open house, or through this public meeting and the open house held a couple weeks ago. And the final adoption for the official plan is anticipated in late fall. So conceptually, on the graphic right here, we're in the second last and the third last steps. We're kind of doing those steps simultaneously. Next steps after the official plan is adopted includes the West Wasaga secondary plan, as this secondary plan includes a more in-depth analysis of the west end of town that it's not quite possible in an official plan. So once the secondary plan is complete, that will be included in our new OP. And then the zoning bylaw, as I mentioned, that is the main instrument for implementing the official plan. And we also propose to come out, we also plan to develop a town-wide urban design guidelines in 2025. And that concludes my presentation. To request additional information on this project, you can send an email to the new email that we created specifically for this project, a new op@wasegabeach.com, and you can visit our Engage Wasaga website, the official plan review page on that website, and we've provided a link in this presentation here, and we open the floor for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matt, for that presentation. Madam Deputy Clerk, do we have anyone registered online or in person to make comments or questions tonight?
Thank you, Your Worship. We do have one person in the council chambers that has registered, and that's Matthew Whitley. And
all right, Matthew, if you'd come forward, please.
Good
evening, Matthew.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation. I appreciate it. And thanks for the opportunity to speak.
Could you just, state your full name and address for the
Yes,
record?
Matthew Whitley, 1090 River Road West, Wasaga Beach. Yeah, thanks. Thanks again. I just made some notes here on my phone, so I'm just going to read it so that I can be concise. So yeah, I'm just seeking some clarity in terms of the plan and as it relates to private property. So you did open by stating that the plan applies to all lands, or is it all property within the boundaries of Wasaga Beach? So I'm just, I've done my due diligence in terms of looking at the legislation and the Constitution and Crown grants that apply. And my comprehension is that it's your duty and obligation to be competent in all of these levels of legislation as it relates to, any new plan and anything that's to be enforced against property. So, so I guess the question is, where are those boundaries, and do they stop at the private property line? Now, I understand that it's not your intent to answer all these questions, so I'm just gonna continue. So, Additionally, I'd like to know what funding relationships would cause the direction of the plan. In other words, are there any boxes that are being ticked in terms of compliance that you're seeking as it relates to any funding that would be coming in from, private or public, entities? That might be the UN, or it might be, gas transfer credits, any of that sort of thing. So I'd like to get some clarity on that. So when I refer to private property, I'm referring to property where no agreement or encumbrances exist on title to diminish the land use rights. And based on the Crown grants and the British North America Act, Section 109, that refers to reserving interests that exist at that time from the province, and Section 11 of the Municipal Act, where it states what the spheres of jurisdiction are, it appears to me that no jurisdiction does exist for a municipality on private land. And I concur with the Ontario Landowners Association report on municipal plan, on official municipal plans as it relates to this evening. So you did each get a copy of that report yesterday. Was that received?
You're talking about the envelope?
Yeah, the big envelope. Yeah.
I think every councillor, including myself,
Yes.
either received it late yesterday or today.
Yeah, thank you. And I recognize that's a lot of data to take in, but within that report, it is intended for municipal councillors such that they can act in accordance with the legislation so that they don't make the municipality or themselves, liable for trespass, essentially. So I do concur with the conclusions of that report, which is that there is no jurisdiction for a municipality to administer property in the private. So that would include municipal bylaws. So typically a corporate bylaw is something which is to administer the corporation itself. So there is additional facts and evidence provided in those notices that were provided yesterday. So I do not understand how private property can be within a service corporation such as a municipality of Wasaga Beach. So how does property become inside of a service corporation versus being colloquially on the lands of Wasaga Beach? So that's sort of the premise of the question. So Section 11 of the Municipal Act does outline all of the spheres of jurisdiction, which don't appear to have any relation to private property. They seem to be all within the sphere of public works. So I'm seeking clarity on the intent of the official plan as it relates to private property and the administration of such. So, and that includes being in compliance with Crown grants, the Constitution, the Criminal Code of Canada, the Municipal Act, and other related legislation. So that said, there's a focus in the plan about sustainability. So I have worked for the founder of the world's largest sustainable design and aid organization known as Permaculture. So I am well versed in these concepts. And so I wish to offer any help that I can to direct the actions and intent of the municipality, having quite a lot of experience in this area. Carbon is required for vegetation. Vegetation is required for maintenance of water cycles and ecosystems. In the 1970s, the emergency was that we were all going to die because of the next ice age that man was creating. And now we flip to the opposite side, so not making much sense there. So if there are any claims that are being made in regard to jurisdiction on private property, I'd like to have clarity within the plan on that issue. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Matthew, and thank you for being as concise. I don't know, staff, do you wish to respond to any of these tonight, or we'll take these in and we will get you those answers, Matthew.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Madam Clerk, anyone else registered to come forward?
Your worship, we do not have anyone else registered.
All right then, since we have no further people registered online or through the deputy clerk, I'll ask if there's any members in the audience who would like to come forward and speak to the official plan tonight or have any questions. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm going to ask you to pull that mic down a little bit.
Pull it down,
You have the
okay.
same challenge as I do.
Okay.
All right. State your name and addresses for the record, please.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Council, and to all here in attendance tonight. I'm Claire Chasson.
Pam Stevens.
We're here tonight along with some of our neighbors looking to see Schedule C6, which is the designation of 100 and 101 Cedar Grove Parkway. We're here to ensure the proper changes have been made. The map was incorrectly labeled designated for the past 20 years. Now that the mistake was brought to you, Mr. Mayor and Council, we are hoping that it's been amended as promised. As you know, we're fighting to keep our homes, so ensuring this mistake has been corrected is both paramount and critical to our fight for what's right.
And there it is, and as far as I can tell, it is, if this is the second draft, where you see Cedar Grove Parkway right in the center, then we have Beechwood Road, if we're traveling south, there's, what's that park across from us called?
Jelly Bean,
And there's Jelly Bean, and so
it's still
it's
reversed.
still wrong. It has not been corrected. You know, this is a very big disappointment from the planning department, who was notified on May 25th of this year that the designation was incorrect. You know, we had the paperwork circulated to all the council members that it was incorrect. I reconnected with Matt Ellis again over this problem. We brought this up.
June 23rd of last year, we did a deputation, stated that it was incorrect, and then again on July 29th, when we came in front of the council, it was stated again that it was incorrect, and you did promise that it would be fixed.
So what this is showing is where you look at Cedar Grove Parkway to the north, they're showing that as being
Residential.
residential. And there's nothing that's residential about it at all. It is all seasonal campground. And then where the full-time residentials are on the brown, we are labeled the same as Jelly Bean, which is commercial camping, or whatever we're calling
When
it now.
it should indeed be switched. We
Yeah.
should be the residential, and the other side should be
Why
brown.
is this still not corrected? Sorry, I didn't mean to bang.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We just please
I would
understand her
appreciate-
frustration. We've been working really hard at
Really
this.
I understand your frustration, ladies, but I'm going to ask you to stay calm and civil
Of course.
and respectful, and we will absolutely give you that same due diligence. I'll look to staff to see if we have any response to that. I'll look to our Director of Planning, Trevor Houghton. Trevor?
Through your worship, the town staff position has been that the lands that are in the secondary plan, for the most part, will not be redesignated through the official plan review. It'll be done and looked at through the west secondary process. And we hope to have a draft memo out to the public in probably the next 3 to 4 weeks on that.
Okay, so to be clear, ladies, the reason it hasn't been corrected in the official plan at this point is because, as you may know, we are working on the West End secondary plan, which takes it basically from Moseley and Beechwood all the way out to the town, the end of the town lines.
Okay.
Which is at, not Wasaga 500, but Blue Mountain Go-Karts.
Okay.
So what I'm hearing is that as they go through that and complete that secondary plan, you'll see that correction.
Okay, so that will be made, that correction. We have that right there. That will be made, 100%.
I'm going to look to Trevor again to answer that question.
So through your worship, what we propose to do through the secondary plan is tell you as council what we think it ought to be designated as. I'm not telling council or the public that it will or will not be designated to what these residents are asking for. All I'm simply saying is it's not going to be done through this official plan review. It'll be brought forward as a secondary plan, and that's when the designation will be brought forth to council for your consideration.
Okay, so they'll bring a report to us suggesting what those designations should be. I don't think...
Well, at the end of the day, residents are
don't-
residents and
I
campers are
don't-
campers, so.
Well, we plan to act, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, okay, thank you. So I don't think there'll be any question as to where you live being residential. There certainly isn't in my mind.
Okay.
In that section of the park being residential. I don't think there'll be any, I can't speak for all of council, but I highly doubt anyone else would see that any differently. We understand your plight. We understand how unfair that is, in my opinion, anyway. And when staff brings that forward, I'm quite confident that you'll see the change made.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you,
Appreciate your
ladies.
time. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's anyone else in the audience tonight who would like to come forward and speak or ask questions, please state your name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, Terry McKay at 562 Mosley Street.
Tara, welcome.
I did read through not all the plan, but a lot of it, and most of my interest is in a lot of the environmental wording that was in it. And I just found that a lot of the things that we're suggesting about, sort of the parameters of future development seems to be worded in a more ambiguous way, like suggesting that developers may do this or should do this, whereas I feel like if we're trying to make some really substantial moves and moving in a very environmentally friendly direction and alleviating climate change, that the wording should be a lot stronger. So when you're kind of putting these parameters in place, using things like, shall and should, as opposed to may, it just leaves it open to basically ambiguity, and also leaves sort of a lot of leeway for developers to basically decide if they choose to do it or not do it. It's not telling them that they have to do these things. So I just feel that those anything to do with looking at taking down trees, tree canopy, keep lot coverages, just preserving forests, trying to alleviate environmental damage, things like that. I just think the wording needs to be a heck of a lot stronger, so there's just no question that when people are coming in to develop, that all these things have to be imperative. They just shouldn't be like, well, we'd like you to do it, but how about you? If you're going to build in our town, we want to go in a completely like a different direction for the future, and we want to be really, really strong with preserving the natural beauty, with the water quality, with preserving existing forests, with trying to maintain the tree canopy, with not covering, smaller lot sizes, so you have less, solid, hard surfaces. You want more drainage on lots, things like that. So I just feel, and even looking towards, net zero society. I mean, continuing installing gas furnaces in new subdivisions, things like that. I mean, when we're trying to be, net zero by 2050 across the country, we're not going to get there with kind of suggestions of, what developers should do. It's, how about they have to do it if they're going to build. So that's.
Thank you very much, Tara. All right, anyone else who has questions or comments, please come forward. State your name and address for the record, please. I'll ask a second time if there's anyone else who... All right, you're coming this way. Okay. Good evening. I'd ask you to state your name and address for the record, please.
Catherine Brennan, 395 Zoo Park Road.
Welcome, Catherine.
I'm just curious as to what it means in the plans of a complete area, complete neighborhood, complete, like it's kind of out there, like, are we not complete already? So I'm just trying to figure out what is meant by that phrasing.
Did you want to respond to that?
Sure. Through your worship, so the complete communities is really the goal of ensuring that the communities have the things like neighborhood commercial uses like convenience stores and grocery shopping and like all the things that you need to fulfill your day-to-day needs, and things like schools, doctors' offices, daycare facilities, things like that. So you can live your whole life within the community, and that's and as well as complete streets with sidewalks and active transportation options and parks and all that good stuff.
So basically everything that makes a good community.
Right. All of those things within a 15-minute radius, right?
No, it doesn't have to be within a 15-minute radius.
Okay.
So if you look at Wasaga Beach.
Yes,
Wasaga
I've lived in
Beach is
Wasaga Beach for 30-odd years, and it's a great community.
It's
It
been here my
truly
whole
is.
life, so it's an amazing community.
Yes.
But what I will tell you is that there are many things that we all often have to leave Wasaga Beach for because it isn't here. So a complete community would alleviate having to do that Maybe not completely, but as much as possible. So if you want a pair of shoes, you have a choice. You can go to Walmart, or you have to go somewhere else to find shoes in different shoe stores. Shirts, dresses, suits, you name it, right? So a complete community would include all that. When you look at many of our streets throughout this town, they don't have sidewalks. We're only getting sidewalks on a good majority of River Road West this year. So that works towards creating a complete community. So that's basically it in a nutshell.
Okay, so I'm looking perhaps at Zoo Park Road, that there will be a corner store that I can walk to, and a doctor's office, and all of these wonderful things that I can walk to? Is that?
Well, that's the goal.
That's the goal.
You're fortunate
Okay.
on Zoo Park Road, you're pretty close to a convenience store or two already.
You're right.
And doctor's offices and dentists and so on, and Walmart, but there are many areas of town that don't have, you can't walk to a
Right.
convenience store, for
Right.
example.
Okay. I think he had something he wanted to say.
Sure, yeah, go ahead. Steve?
Thank you. And if I might just add through you, one of the sort of the ideas behind this complete community term is that people shouldn't have to drive everywhere to get what they need. So that's sort of a big driver of the idea.
Okay.
Great.
So myself, getting up there in years, if my mobility ever comes into question, am I okay still to be driving and things like that? Is this what we're, because I'm just trying to visualize, in 10 years, whether or not I'm going to be able to, drive to wherever I need to go in order to still maintain the quality of life that I'm used to.
So I'll ask you this question, why wouldn't you be able to drive unless they,
Well,
unless they
that's what
took your driver's license? And you say you're getting up there in age, but you certainly don't look like it. So, but at the end of the day, there's no reason why you wouldn't be able to drive. We live in a free country, and if you wish to drive and you're licensed to drive,
Perfect.
then you can drive wherever you
Okay,
like.
so we're not worried about these borders and things like that they're wanting to implement.
Absolutely not in any way, shape, or
'Cause
form.
I'm not in agreement with any of that nonsense.
And nor am I.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else who would like to come forward and ask questions or make a statement, please come and state your name and address for the record, please. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. Bruce Broadbent, 11 Bayswater Drive. So I am a West Wasaga resident, so I'm concerned about the West Wasaga secondary plan, and I'd like to know a little bit more about the plans for that. Will there be a public meeting, another one? We had one at the Recplex, but another one regarding the draft plan when it's ready. Will it be like this, where we have a chance to ask questions again? And is there any timetable? And I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Trevor?
Through your worship, so yes, there will be a separate public meeting for the West Secondary Plan. We're trying to track that for the end of November, beginning of December. As I said, we're trying to get a memo out in the next 3 or 4 weeks, which is a summary of what WSP, who is the planning consultant, has heard to date, including the data that we collected through the charrette that we did, the 3-day charrette in June. And we hope to have that out in the public realm, like I said, in the next little short while. And then we'll schedule a public meeting with a draft official plan with the policies and the schedules, and there will be a public meeting just like this one as well.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bruce. Anyone else who would like to come forward and ask questions or make a statement, please do so. Good evening, sir. State your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Phil Bender. My address is 6 Lamont Creek Drive.
Welcome, Phil.
Thank you. The 21 years ago, we bought our place in Wasaga Beach. We hadn't considered it. We were living in Collingwood, had a place in Collingwood. And my impression of Wasaga Beach was just traffic jams all the time. And who would want to come to Wasaga Beach? Now, having lived here for 21 years, it's not so bad as we thought it was going to be. We've improved the roads. But when we have our population doubled again by 2051, do we have enough roads to handle all the traffic. And where does the traffic plan come into this official plan? I'm just wondering, whether, and another river crossing, wouldn't that be part of an official plan review? If we're gonna, and there's County Road, I think it's 96, the little stub of a road that goes behind the Stainer Municipal Yard between 45th Street and Highway 26. That's a county road, that little 3-kilometer section. And when I asked at the county, they said there's been a sketch of a road, a new county road going from Highway 27 to the Collingwood area. It's been on their forecast for years. And does our official plan take that into account? That there'll be a new county road and then access roads, and where would they go? Is that the purview of this? Maybe that's not the purview of this official plan, but that's my question.
Perfectly good questions. Trevor?
Through your worship, in response, there, for the public's information, there's actually 3 schedules that I would refer them to in the draft, second draft, that you can find on the Engage website. There's E1, which is the roads classification map. There's also the E2, which is our public transportation plan. And there's also E3, which is our active transportation plan, which is mostly the bike trails and other trails that we have. In consideration, the Public Works Department and the Engineering Department were a part of the departments that were reviewing the first draft heading into the second draft that Matt touched on back basically 9 weeks between the summer and ending in September. So the Public Works Department is updating and making sure that our official plan is up to date with as many traffic studies that we have and proposed roads so that those maps are correct. In terms of the county, it's actually a good point that he's raised. The county has been engaged with us as part of that review, those 9 weeks that we did. So their planners are also looking at our official plan, and they're looking at it also for their departments, including their roads network and their waste disposal people as well, and also from the mapping perspective. So the county is also reviewing our official plan to make sure that it's in conformity with their official plan and any of their road networks as well.
All right, so in short, yes, we are planning for future traffic. It's why we're widening River Road West. It's why we're looking to put a West End depot and another water tower out in the West End. There's lots to be done, no doubt, between now and 1951. We're going backwards now. It might be cheaper to go backwards. 2051, so between the county, of course, and the staff here at the town and the departments, we're absolutely all over making sure that we're going to be prepared. And again, E1, E2, and was it E3? Are going to give you all the information in the official plan on the website that refers to roads, transportation, and active transportation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have another question.
Certainly, go ahead.
When I looked at the colored map, the first one you showed, it showed land for future development. I think it was a brown color, and there wasn't very much. Like we're going to be fooled before we get to 2051. Is that what you're saying? So what about, I guess, do you plan for annexation, or that's a different topic for another day? How do we grow?
I'll look to Trevor to answer that question as well. Trevor?
Well, I won't speak to the annexation, Your Worship. I'm not a politician, but the gentleman has made a keen observation. The brown lands are rural lands, and he is right. We are running out of rural lands. Rural lands in the context of a settlement area like the town are generally lands that are being used for agricultural uses in the short term, but in the long term, they're expected to be used for other things. And our official plan in the draft will tell you the same. We are very aware that we are running out of what I would call green fields, which is basically those lands that have never been developed. And that is why, as part of our Schedule A, we came up with the strategic growth areas. And the strategic growth areas are going to be where we're going to be pushing the majority of additional growth in the future to meet that 2051 population numbers. There are still some large undeveloped tracts of land in the West Secondary Plan, and you will probably, unsurprisingly, see that those lands will be proposed for some type of development also when that secondary plan comes out. But the observation that the gentleman made is correct. We are running out of easy greenfield development within our municipal boundaries, and that's why we're pushing the strategic growth areas, the growth nodes, and the West Secondary Plan.
Any other questions?
Sort of related to that. So we're looking for intensification, infilling and higher and more dense population in the, that's the outlook for.
Certainly. Well, once we run out of green space, if you will, and even before then, infill and intensification in certain areas, those growth nodes that Trevor spoke to, is what we'll be looking, or where we'll be looking to intensify to increase those numbers. So a good example of that, I would say, would be our Main Street between the Stonebridge area and Glenwood Drive here. That's an area that is, got a lot of land there that could be intensified in the downtown node. But I'm going to look to our CAO, Andrew, to speak to this as well for you. Andrew?
Yeah, thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Just to simplify it, first generation growth, you grow out, and that's greenfield, what Trevor talked about. Second generation growth, you grow up, and that means higher density buildings, condos, 3-4 stories, et cetera. You don't want to grow up everywhere because you want to protect and some of the stable neighborhoods. So we want to direct that growing up to certain areas of town, like the downtown, like the key nodes that Matt and Trevor have identified. Because again, you don't want to grow up everywhere. You want to be very careful and deliberate about where you do that.
Right. Well, we came to Wasaga Beach because we didn't want that. We rejected that where we.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else who would like to come forward and ask a question or make a comment with respect to the official plan?
I just want to
round two.
clarify something.
Okay.
Can I come back again?
Go ahead.
I know that you're talking with the province about trying to acquire some of the, the forested lands that they have that stretch, and there's a whole strip of it along Shoreline Road, and, so for future development. So would those lands be part of the proposed official plan, or because once they become part of town of Wasaga Beach, then they're open to the same rules and regulations and suggestions in the plan?
Yeah, so let me be clear. We're not looking to the province to necessarily give us a bunch of green lands that are now provincial park. We're looking to the province to form a task force so we can sit down with the different ministries and look at what is best suited for Wasaga Beach with respect to the provincial park, with respect to Nancy Island, and with respect to your point, a lot of those vacant lots that were residential or commercial until they were scooped up by the province, and then everything was cleared, and then they were left to grow over. So these aren't lands that we'd be looking to the province for to take what we would refer to as natural green space. These were lands that were once residential properties or commercial properties that we collected taxes on and development charges on and so forth. So, but until we get to sit down at a round table, if you will, with those ministries and work that out, we can't answer that question. I'll look to our CAO if he wants to add to that, but basically that's it in a nutshell, and I don't think it's going to happen overnight.
Okay.
Although we'd like it to. Andrew, anything to add?
I think that was a good job of explaining it. We're not looking to touch natural areas that are owned by the province. As the mayor indicated, we're looking at lands that are not being utilized, that have been left to essentially rot for 50 years.
Rotting
And there's-
seems to be creating beautiful forests. There's a whole stretch on the south side
Oh,
of Shoreline
I'm aware.
Road.
So again, so
you know,
we
that's-
want
that's-
to work with the province to identify what lands should stay natural, but what lands have potential for development. Again, it's not going to be all the lands, but there are some lands that could potentially be developed.
Yeah. It's just a concern, because when you look at, like, for example, putting in the new separate school, the fact that you're taking all the forests down, they say that the school board wants it completely cleared, and I feel like that seems like a stupid way to develop now. Like, why wouldn't you want to keep mature tree corridors around properties like this, instead of just leveling every tree and then putting up your school and your stuff and then planting a few sticks here and there? To keep the flavor of when you drive into Wasaga Beach and seeing these forests, like if you could keep 50-foot sort of corridors of mature trees as opposed to taking them all out. I mean, I think that kind of careful thought and consideration to existing forests, when you're trying to fit infill in between it makes a lot of sense, and also keeps the character of the town. So.
I hear you, and I agree with you. Easier said than done, but it's something, every time a developer comes to this municipality, I can tell you that these are the same questions and the same topics we discuss with developers, and staff discuss with developers as well. However, if they meet the criteria within the Planning Act, which is dictated by the province, we're kind of in a tough spot, but we hear you.
Yeah. So what they're basically saying is, what we can put together this official plan and give all these ideas and suggestions, and then basically the province can just veto it all anyway, and they can do what they want?
I'll look to Trevor to answer that. He's the expert, but that's pretty much it. Trevor?
So why do we go to all the trouble then?
So basically, municipalities are creatures of the province, so in a draconian society in an alternate universe, maybe that would be the case, but I doubt that that would actually happen. But the province does absolutely, as Matt said in his presentation, it is a top-down driven policy direction. And just so for Terry's understanding, there is a policy that we have in the official plan called the Wasaga Beach Provincial Park Overlay Designation. It's actually in section 4.3.8, and then if you look at that policy and then Schedule A of the official plan, you'll see that right now that most, but not all, but the majority of the provincial beach lands are in this designation, and most, but not all of it is like a green land designation already.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. Anyone else who has a question or comment tonight? You have your hands full. You've been busy.
Hi.
Good evening. Name and address for the record, please.
Neela Peaky in 1043 Moseley Street.
Good evening, Neela.
So I've just got a few questions, and I read through the draft of the official plan, and I kept seeing the same kind of terminology, like complete neighborhoods, complete communities, complete streets. So could you just define for me what a complete street is?
Absolutely. Trevor?
Yeah, just give me 1 second, please. Yeah, I know, I just gotta get there. So,
Trevor, while we're waiting, okay, it's good. There was a bright light in the back there shining right in our eyes. I was going to ask that to be turned off, but it's off. Go ahead, Trevor.
through your worship. So in section 8.5 in the definition section of the official plan, we have a complete community definition, we have complete streets. Complete communities are places such as mixed-use neighborhoods or other areas within cities, towns, or settlement areas that offer and support opportunities for people of all ages and abilities to conveniently access most of the necessities for daily living, including an appropriate mix of jobs, local stores and services, a full range of housing, transportation options, and public service facilities. Complete streets are streets that have been planned to balance the needs of all road users, including pedestrians, cyclists, transit users, and motorists.
Can you just repeat the section there for that for us, please, Trevor?
Section 8.5.
All right.
He says without checking, so
Okay,
yeah,
so-
it's 8.5.
So essentially, what's missing from our existing streets now other than sidewalks? Like, are we planning on putting in, like, like a train system, like, not train system, but, you know, like the railways with the streetcars? Or is it, are we using complete streets just to implement, like pedestrian sidewalks? Is it just for that, or?
Yeah, I'll let Trevor answer that, and I'll add to that possibly.
Through your worship, so I'm not suggesting that the town is going to put a light rail system in for Wasaga Beach. I think in the context of the town, it would be things like exactly what the lady just said. It would be like sidewalks where there are no sidewalks, multi-use trails, things of that, maybe bike lanes, things of that nature. And that would all be done through council, through the engineering and the availability to afford to put in such services.
It could also mean expanding our current transit system to cover more streets, so as that people aren't having to walk further. It could include adding more paratrans to our transit system. We currently have one vehicle in our transit system now that you can actually call and book it to come and get you at a specific time. It could be adding that. It's to make it more accessible by all citizens and not having to travel necessarily 5 or 10 minutes to get to something like a convenience store. So ease in life, I would say.
Okay, so when this plan seems really expansive and large for what we are right now as Wasaga Beach, I'm just trying to get a sense for, like, who really wants this amount of infrastructure in Wasaga Beach? I'm a local real estate agent, and some of the things that I'm seeing, just even with affording what we already have, it makes me worry about, like, taxation. Like, how much of the infrastructure and all the cost to do all of this, how much is going to come back on, the residents? How much higher of taxes are they going to have to pay? MPAC has suspended their next round of tax assessments, and I think they're just starting to redo tax assessments on properties. So people's taxes, they should already expect for prices, property taxes to go up. So, like, how much higher is it going to go? And then we're already dealing with an affordability crisis. I worry that this is really going to, throw people off, or people are going to have to move out of Wasaga. So it's great to offer all these, all this infrastructure and all this stuff, but I mean, how attainable is it really? Where's the funding coming from?
So I guess, sorry, Andrew, you want to go ahead? But sorry, Andrew, before you do, I think what's important to note is that we have most of this infrastructure here now. It's a matter of improving what we already have. We're not creating anything new here. It's improving what we already have currently. So I'll turn to Andrew to elaborate on that, and then we'll come back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through Mr. Mayor. You need to keep in mind that this is a 30-year plan. So we're projecting out 30 years into the future, and you're constantly planning 30 years out. So 10 years from now, we're going to be thinking 30 years out. So, we're not going to do all this overnight. It's going to be phased in. There's going to be provincial funding, federal funding that comes on stream. I also wanted to circle back to your comment about infrastructure. There's a term called contextually sensitive design. What that means is not every neighborhood needs sidewalks, not every neighborhood needs bike lanes, not every street has to have a transit stop on it. So we look at the community and identify where the most pressing needs are, and that's what we work to try and fund. We work with our other levels of government partners to try and advance projects when funding opportunities become available. So all of this, we try and balance our capital infrastructure needs with available funding. But again, we can't do everything that we possibly want to do every year. That's what the budget process is for, to identify priorities, and we do what we can afford to do, and we spread it out over multiple years. The road network that's in the official plan will take 30 years to build. It's not going to happen in 2.
No, I thought I saw the vision plan of 15 to 20 years. I thought I had seen that you guys were trying to grow this over 15 to 20 years, not 30 years?
The time horizon for the official plan is 30 years to 2051.
Up to 30, 2051. Okay.
Correct.
Okay, so Could you give me an idea on what you think it would cost the average resident as of 2050? I know this is hard because it's so far out, but as of 2051, would you say that their property taxes would go up an average of like 15 to 20%?
That's completely impossible
Okay.
for me to have a crystal
Yeah.
ball to answer that question today. What we do every year is we bring forward a budget and try to be as fiscally prudent as possible, and we bring it forward to council, and we debate every line item to provide services and infrastructure investments that we believe the community prioritizes and would like to see, and we do it in a fiscally prudent manner. So again, we try to keep our tax increases as small as possible. We have historically been one of the lower municipalities in the county, and I don't envision that changing.
Okay. I also had a question on, yeah,
I'm just going to, go ahead.
oh, sorry.
Oh, can you hear me? Yeah. So I just wanted to add as well, like a lot of the needs for the infrastructure that is being referenced here, you know, adding more complete streets or redeveloping existing streets to make pedestrians more comfortable, make cycling more convenient and safe. The cost to do that would be tied to the intensification of those areas. So there would be development revenues that would help to offset the cost of doing those projects. And as the municipality grows, there would be development charges that would come in to help pay for the cost of making those improvements. And property developers themselves might be required to put the sidewalk in, for example, across the frontage of their property along an existing street, you know, improve the road. I think the other thing to keep in mind here is that a car-dependent community is one of the most expensive to service as well, and that if we can look at ways to reduce the need to get in your car to go everywhere in the community, it can reduce the need and the traffic congestion and the time it takes to get across the community, because you can walk to the convenience store, you can walk to school, and that saves everybody money, because now we don't need the same capacity on the roads, we don't need to have as many cars, we don't need as much parking area. All of those things come into play, and it certainly costs residents a lot of money to own and operate their cars as well to go about their daily lives. So the goal is to be as efficient and you know, supportive of convenient daily life as possible through the plan.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.
I think the other thing to note is that this isn't our first official plan. And this is not unique to Wasaga Beach to have an official plan. Every community, 444 municipalities in the province of Ontario, have to have official plans and have to continue to update them. It just so happens that ours has been a little longer than many. 2003 was the last one. So, you know, if I think back to when I was a child, I could ride my bike from Glenwood Drive here to Worsley Public School and maybe see 5 cars. The road was mine. The population was somewhere around 1,500 people. And we didn't have sewer and water. Today we have sewer and water, all because of official plans and planning 30 years in advance. And so this is not unique in any way, shape, or form. This is a standard process that municipalities go through, several of them every year, all the time.
Okay. Just one last, two last questions, and I'm done, I promise. So I was just curious if you had any numbers to share on how much we had to pay GSP Group to draft the official plan. That's the firm that drafted the plan from Kitchener.
Yeah, no, I'm aware who they are.
Okay.
Trevor, do we have anything for that?
Yeah, I do have something for that, actually. In 2017, the RFP was released. It was a 2-phase RFP. Phase 1 was to consult and do the information gathering, and that was $125,000. And Phase 2 was the policy preparation, and that also was $125,000.
And I would note that that's not out of the realm, again, of what every municipality would pay, and it's unnecessary, it's a necessary evil that we have to do, and we need experts to do that. Andrew?
Yeah, and I just wanted to echo the mayor's comment. This is not optional. The province requires municipalities to do this work.
Okay. And lastly, I'm just curious if you have any numbers for us on how much you plan on spending on like green initiatives for the town?
Andrew?
Again, this is all part of the budget process that we're currently engaged in. Off the top of my head, I can't, I don't know the exact number that we've allocated.
It's not about an exact number, just like an idea, any kind of.
Again, we're implementing Green Fleet. Again, this is going to occur over many years, many decades. We're looking at potential.
Sorry, can you confirm what Green Fleet is?
So, for example, taking a gas car and
Hold
buying an
on,
electric.
Andrew, I'm going to, we're here to deal with the official plan tonight.
Yeah, I would like to hear his answer, though,
Yeah, but-
as to
but-
what the,
But the Green Fleet has nothing to do with the official plan.
so green initiatives are not involved. I mean, from my understanding, the official plan was partially created because of concerns of climate change, so I think this is important.
Well, climate change is brought into consideration when creating the official plan,
Okay.
but it isn't a reason for an official plan. Tonight, we're talking about the official plan, the question you're asking now.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to be difficult, but the rule applies to everybody, is that those are questions more to do with budget and the municipality and our planning process moving forward. So the Green Fleet and green initiatives, happy to answer those questions. I would just suggest you send that in an email to the CAO's office, and we'd be happy to get back to you with that.
Okay, so then I guess a better question would be, within the official plan and your green initiatives, like installing EV charging stations and that, do you have any information on numbers?
So if I could, through Mr. Mayor, an official plan is a policy document.
Right.
It explains what you aspire to be as a community.
Okay.
It is not the implementation tool. Implementation tools
Okay.
are things like zoning bylaws, your yearly capital budget, strategic plans, et cetera. So I think the details that you're looking for flow out of an official plan. They're not contained within the details of the official plan. This is a higher level aspirational document.
Okay.
I hope that helps clarify a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's then the middle ground between the official plan that you're giving out that, we're supposed to be excited about versus how it ends up all coming together and what the cost is. That's where things can get hard for residents, right? With affordability and all of that. So that's just a huge concern for me. But yeah, thank you for taking all of my questions. I appreciate it.
You're
Thanks
very
a lot.
welcome. And again, if you want to submit those questions specific to the CAO's office, we'll be happy to get back to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, is there anyone else in the audience tonight? There is. Good evening. State your name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, I'm Tammy Uswishin, 121 Knox Road West. And I just was wanting clarification. It says that when it's speaking about the new official plan, it says, as the new official plan also impacts what you can do with your property. That's the clarification, right there. It's really vague, and I'm not sure, is that only speaking about vacant property that people own, or is that property owners that there will be changes or things that we need to conform to, or, it's so vague. I have no clue what this means, and as a property owner, this is the only reason why I'm here right now.
No,
So
and
if
it-
anybody can give me any indication what that means, since this was an official notification, as a resident, I'd really like to know.
Sure, and it's an excellent question. And so, Trevor?
Through your worship, so the official plan does many things, as we've already discussed in detail. I think what this person would like to know is how it impacts her property directly. Okay. So on the land use schedules, emphasize the word land use. It tells basically what the official plan document could allow as a permitted use on your lands. And then that is further refined through something called the zoning bylaw. I think what I would suggest for this person, if she could stick around, Matt or myself could give her our cards, and then if we can dial down to her level of detail and tell her what her lands are designated today, and what they will be designated in the future and what they're currently zoned right now, and then we can explain what that all means.
Yeah, and part of my concern is just I live on Knox Road, and with all this new development that is going on and projected behind me, beside me, kitty corner to me, Knox Road is becoming the new Mosley. It's the secondary route, and I'm not sure just how these massive changes on the west end will impact me, my neighbors, because we are becoming like a thoroughfare. And so yes, if anybody can give me a heads up on that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, so if you're going to be here, as soon as we're finished, we'll get one of these gentlemen to give you a card, and they can have a chat with you. All right, anyone else with questions or comments for this evening's meeting? I'll ask a second time. Any further questions or comments, please come forward. And a final time, anyone with questions or comments for tonight's meeting on the official plan, please come forward, state your name and address. All right, seeing none, I'll now look to members of council for any questions of confirmation. Councillor DeLeo?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I know I'm not allowed to comment or talk about it, but I do want some clarification, if you don't mind, Matt. So on the terms of council priorities, you've got pursue complete streets. Oh, you've answered that. Am I correct? Okay. So secondly, new official plan process, what we heard. So this is what you heard from the people. Compact mixed-use communities. Compact. Explain that, because I'm hearing compact where you can't get your car through, high density. You want to explain that for me, please?
Yes, thank you, Councillor DeLeo, through Mayor Smith. Compact, we're not trying to suggest we want to pack residents into like a can of sardines or anything like that. Certainly nothing like that. We just by stating compact communities, we want to get away from the sprawling, mostly single detached communities that we've had developed in our town for like ever, and more into the types of communities that take up a smaller footprint overall, include mixed use development, higher density, but and yeah, it takes up a smaller footprint, but it's certainly not compact to the point that you can't drive your car through, but you won't just be able to like speed through it, and certainly not as sprawling as what we have today.
Thank you, Matt. Andrew?
Just to give an example, the main street of Collingwood is compact, the main street of Stayner is compact, the main street of Elmville is compact. Essentially what we're trying to do is get back to the way we used to design communities, which was much more sustainable. They were designed around people so that you could walk from your house to the store, to the restaurant, and not all of Wasaga Beach can be compact. What we're saying, certain parts, it would be beneficial to have that, but we're not doing anything new. This was done for hundreds of years. We're just getting back to the basics of how to design really great communities, because we forgot how to do that for a generation.
So if I may.
Thank you. I'll get to you in just a sec, Councillor, but I just want to clarify, because you indicated you're not allowed to speak to it. I just want to be clear that it's not that council is not allowed to speak and ask questions, but there is an appropriate time for council to do that, and that is when staff brings the report back to council. That's when council has the opportunity to speak to ask more questions, to debate. Tonight is for us to hear the public's thoughts. Go ahead, Councillor.
I've still got a couple more, if you may. So, Andrew, if I may, that sounds nice, the compact, but any existing communities, any existing, let's say, subdivisions, they will not be touched. Am I assuming correct?
Generally, what an official plan, or what this official plan is trying to do, is be deliberate about the areas that we want to see change, and be deliberate about the areas that we want to try and preserve. Are they going to be static and never change? You can get houses be torn down and a new house be built, so we tend to refer to that as gentle intensification. But the more dramatic change would be in the nodes, in the strategic growth areas, in the downtown areas, for example. But generally, existing neighborhoods, we're not looking at touching those. If we can add a sidewalk here or a playground here to make it better, we would do that.
Thank you, if I may. Thank you, that's good to hear. Next, this issue is very topicky for me, so I need some clarification on this. The key drivers of change. Global climate emergency. So are you referring to the Global Climate Declaration that the federal government put into place, or do you want to explain that for me, what specifically that means?
Yes,
Matt?
thank you, Councillor DeLeo. Just climate change in general is what we're referring to, and it's globally recognized as a climate emergency, but just the whole realm of climate change is kind of what we're getting at there.
If I may, you indicated that we had a flood on the beach, Beach 1. But isn't that every several years where the water rises? I mean, it's been happening for many years, on and off. So I don't consider that a climate. I mean, it's been happening as long as I could remember, and I've had cottages on Lake Simcoe. So am I correct?
Through Councillor DeLeo, correct. We do see some years where the water level is high and some years where it's not as high, but with climate change, as we anticipate, floods, unfortunately, happening more and more as we see more intense rainfall events and et cetera, events of that nature. So it still happens, but climate change is going to accelerate those processes.
I think to add to that, Councillor, you're right. I can recall 3 times in my lifetime here in Wasaga Beach where Beach Drive has flooded and where the water has reached the stores. Not nearly to the extent of the last one, however. And what we do see throughout our community, the far east end and the far west end especially, is we see more and more flooding in these areas all the time, which we have plans for and we're working on to improve those that drainage system there, but we're seeing that more than we ever did before.
Thank you. It's just the wording that bothers me, that you're calling it that. So, but I'm going to continue. So, you indicated that you had in the focus group, you had meetings and you took focus groups' comments. Did you incorporate them? And if you did, what focus groups were they? Were they the Climate Action Committee, or what focus groups were they? Do you have a list of that?
Through Councillor DeLeo, yes, that would be, those details would be included in the background report that is called the Community Consultation Summary, or maybe Steve can fill in on that.
Yeah, it was some time ago when those specific topic-based group consultations were held, but the ones I can recall were there was one what was more environmentally focused, one about tourism and economic development. I think there was one that was more just general development related, so those who have active development applications, home builders, those kinds of things. Those are the 3 main ones, and then we had a series of agencies, county, different provincial representatives, Conservation Authority, et cetera.
And again, if you go on to our website and look at the official plan, you'll see those reports are there.
I have one more, if I may. You also indicated you had input from stakeholders, and they were considered. Is there a list of these stakeholders, and the input that they gave you, were they incorporated? Like, is there a list of inputs that were incorporated, or were they all just ignored?
Well, I just, let's be clear, I don't think staff would have ignored any input. It would have all been taken into consideration. There's no doubt in my mind. But Steve, go ahead.
It definitely was all documented and considered. The nature of the discussions was pretty general. It wasn't writing the plan as we're meeting. It was getting a sense of what the key issues are in the community, what some of the themes and ideas should be for the future, technical information such as, if mapping needed to be updated, understanding related initiatives that the county's undertaking, those sorts of things, just to make sure we hear from the people who understand the context of the background information that we're trying to build the plan on, and what the key issues are that the plan needs to focus on. So there is a consultation summary report that highlights all of the general themes that emerged from that work.
Again, in the report on our website. Andrew?
I just wanted to add, through you, Mr. Mayor, the background reports summarize the engagement, the stakeholder engagement that took place. I had the privilege of being part of that. The official plan actually started under me back in 2017. So that was what those background reports are for. They summarize that engagement. The process we're in tonight is an opportunity for the community to come forward and express any comments or concerns. These are all going to be documented, and a comment matrix will be created, and we will respond to all of these formal comments. So that's the process we're in right now. But the previous engagement, we don't typically have a comment matrix. We capture that in a background report.
Thank you. It was more for the public to have their input and how many of those inputs were taken into consideration. But if you're going to have a list of that, then even like in the future, you're going to have a list of that? Is that what you're saying?
No, so that was my comment, that the background reports summarize the engagement that took place, and that informed the draft of the official plan. So, we do our best to listen. We don't always agree, and that's why we pay the experts to listen and hear what the community wants to achieve, and then package it in a document that we believe captures the essence of where our community wants to go, but they have to provide their technical expertise to it. Tonight and future engagement is about, did we get it right? Do you have any concerns with what we've interpreted as what you're trying to achieve as a community? Steve, do you want to add to that, or is that fair?
I think that's fair. We didn't, document a list of every individual who participated in which session, though we did have sign-in sheets that I'm sure are in the background files where we asked people if they were willing to write their name and contact information down so we could keep in touch with them through the process. And there are obviously, under the Planning Act, there's some agencies that the town is required to consult with through this process, and we made sure that those agencies were contacted and we could find those contact names. But in terms of a list and a number of people who participated, I don't have that exact detail. I will say that this community has been excellent in participating in this process, and we don't see that everywhere we do this in Ontario. We had great turnout in every session that we held, a lot of interest and passion about what the future of Wasaga Beach will look like. And the refreshing thing is that people who participated were interested not just in what happens with their property or with their neighborhood, but the broader vision for all of Wasaga Beach, and obviously care a lot about the community, and I think it's made for a better plan having that kind of input.
And Steve, would you say that this is standard protocol, the way we have run this official plan leading up to today, as you do in any neighborhood or any community?
Absolutely. We followed, tried and true methods and the procedures of the Planning Act, and best practices in terms of how to engage with the community and get input on how to plan for the future. And it was a very comprehensive process that follows the best model that we know of in terms of how to do this work.
All right, thank you very much. Finished, Councillor? All right, next is Councillor Belanger.
Yes, through the mayor.
Sorry, Councillor, one sec. Sorry, Patrick.
Right, sorry. Yes, through you, Your Worship. I just wanted to respond to the question from Councillor DeLeo about sort of effects on existing development. I think it also touches on some of the questions we've had from members of the public. Just to clarify, the Planning Act does not authorize an official plan to interfere with land uses that already exist. as long as those uses were established according to the rules that were in effect at the time. So we refer to them as lawfully established. As long as it's lawfully established, the official plan and the zoning bylaw can't prevent it from continuing. So as long as people established their land uses according to the rules that were in place, those can continue, and the official plan can't say anything about stopping those.
So I think we've answered that lady's question from Knox Road. So if what you've done so far was done legally and it was to the current zoning bylaws and regulations, then the new official plan cannot or will not change that. All right, but we'd be happy to give you a card anyway. All right. Councillor Belanger?
Yes, through the mayor. I'm going to be very brief. I'm going to hold my questions to when the staff report comes back to us. But the point of the flooding of Beach Drive, when that was originally developed, they had to adhere to floodplains and if we had a conservation authority or whatever. But now that you're going into new development, you now have to comply to all of the changes that have occurred over the years. So effectively, I would believe those buildings are now in a floodplain and that we're doing the appropriate mitigation to ensure that that new development is safe and everything adheres to current policy and procedure. Is that correct?
Andrew?
Absolutely. The buildings that are down there today, you could not build those today in their current location without actually engaging in flood mitigation, creating flood protection, and probably raising them up. So you're absolutely right. The rules were different 100 years ago, so the world looks different today. I don't want to get into a debate around whether climate change is real or it isn't, but I think we can all agree that storms are becoming more intense. I own another property that was hit with 3 hurricanes in the matter of 4 weeks. It had never been hit before, ever. So that is highly unusual. The storms we are seeing here are getting more intense. We need to ensure that our infrastructure can respond and adapt to these more intense storms, because it is becoming more prevalent.
All right, thank you, Councillor Belanger. Councillor Ego, did you have a question? No? All right, Deputy Mayor Snell?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, I just wanted to thank the members of the audience for coming out on a Wednesday evening for this amount of time with some really great questions, and to really thank the staff. This has been an intense amount of work since 2017 in order to bring us to this point, and our neighbors in Collingwood that just came to county for approval just last meeting. So all of us are doing this heavy lifting right now. So I just wanted to acknowledge and thank everyone for their efforts.
All right, thank you. Seeing no other questions or comments, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming out. It's not always easy questions, but they're questions that we need to hear, and you know, you hear me say it often, you might not like the answer, but it's going to be the reality and the truth, and so thank you for taking part in your community. And Patrick and Steve, to your comments, we have a very engaged community. We're very fortunate, and there might be a lot of councils who prefer that's not the case, but I think we enjoy it, actually. So thank you for your hard work, staff as well, and we'll now call this public meeting closed. Yeah, I'm going to move to that now. So if you're leaving, folks, I ask you do it quietly because we've still got to finish our meeting. The public part is closed. Moving on to item number 7, which is bylaws. We do have a motion that the bylaw 2024-78 be received and be deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed this 23rd day of October 2024. Questions or comments? Seeing none, could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Deputy Mayor Snell and Councillor Timms. All in favor? That motion carries unanimously. This meeting is adjourned.